Hey everyone, and welcome. In this video, we'll be breaking down the best agents to climb rank with when you're solo queuing. Here's the thing, we all have our favorite pro players stream that we watch, but pro players have a tendency to, well, queue with other pro players in a pre-made group. That's not exactly something that us mere mortals have access to, and instead are often left to solo carry games. And that's exactly why we created this guide, as not every single agent is created equal when it comes to the task of solo carrying a game. Now, this tier list won't just be one person's opinion. We here at SkillCapped consulted with the top players and coaches, while also researching what agents pro players are having the most success with when they solo queue. From this, we've created a tier list going from the S tier, which are the best agents to solo queue with, to D tier, which are the worst. Now, before you scroll down and start flaming in the comment section when you find out your favorite agent is at the bottom of the list, keep in mind, this is all relative. In our opinion, it's possible to climb with every single agent in Valorant, so just because an agent is ranked low does not mean it's not possible to climb with them, it's just that it will be much more difficult on average. And lastly, I think it would be awesome if you guys paused the video and created your own tier list in the comments section below before you see our rankings. This way, not only can you see how close your picks are to the experts, but we all get a better idea of what agents the community think are the most powerful. But before we get into that, do you find yourself struggling to win gunfights? Are you a bit lost on what you should be doing in-game? Or maybe you find yourself stuck at your current rank? Don't worry, as our brand new hyper improvement system is specifically designed to solve these problems. At SkillCapped.com, you'll finally learn how to improve your aim, different techniques to win gunfights, and so much more. We have professional courses on every single agent, map, and mechanic in Valorant. All of this is backed by the top pros, players, and coaches to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date and accurate info possible. In fact, we are so confident that you'll improve using our system that we offer a rank improvement guarantee. Check it out yourself in the link below. Simply put in what rank you're currently stuck at and find out what rank you're guaranteed by using our system. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your true potential and get the rank you've always wanted at SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. Alright, enough intro, let's jump straight into it, starting with the S tier. The S tier consists of the best agents to solo carry with, and at the top of the list we have Jett. Now, at first glance, Jett doesn't exactly seem like the strongest agent. Her dash, although flashy, has a delay at the end of it when it comes to pulling out your gun, so it's not like you can just dash in for free kills. At the same time, her updraft leaves her bullets completely inaccurate, unless you're using a shotgun, and is super loud and easy to hear. Additionally, her Cloudburst is one of the most difficult to use smokes in the game, while also lasting the shortest period of time, 7 seconds. So what exactly is she doing at the top of the S tier? Well, it all has to do with the operator meta that we currently find ourselves in. Right now, the operator is king, and by far the most powerful weapon in Valorant. This is mainly due to the lack of utility in the game to help push an opper off of an angle. And there is simply no better agent for opping right now than Jett. Her tailwind allows her to take a shot and then quickly dash away to safety. Her updraft will let her get to unexpected off angles and to catch opponents off guard. Something else not a lot of players think about is how an agent's strength can vary widely based on the map that it's played on. However, in Jett's case, she doesn't have that issue, being very stable when it comes to her power level on every single map. A good Jett with an operator can single-handedly carry games right now with raw fragging power, completely stonewalling attackers on defense, while also making picks and opening up sites for the taking on attack. Alright, next up in the S tier we have the shadowy figure known as Omen. Now, I know that some of you are thinking a controller in the S tier for solo queue, but don't worry, we haven't lost our minds. Here's the thing, having at least one agent with smokes is mandatory in every single team composition in Valorant. However, there are quite a few problems with the role of vision denial, which I'm sure we've all encountered. Maybe the teammate who has these smokes just refuses to drop them or is putting them in the wrong spot. Or maybe you're the one with these smoke abilities, but when you place them down, none of your teammates push in. For such an important role in Valorant, there sure is a lot of variance when you're queuing by yourself. And Omen addresses all of these issues. If you smoke and your teammates don't push, that's fine. It's not the end of the world, as your smokes were free to use and will recharge. That being said, if we're really being honest, the main reason he's in the S tier has to be his paranoia ability. Most pros are in agreement that this is actually the strongest ability in the game right now. It's nearly impossible to miss, being the size of a truck, while being impossible to dodge as it's moving at the speed of sound. The strength and versatility of this ability cannot be overstated. You can completely stop a team from pushing with a well-placed paranoia into then swinging and killing them while they're short-sighted. At the same time, you can use it to entry frag. In the end, you're basically able to fill in one of the most important roles as a vision denier, while being arguably just as strong of an entry fragger, if not stronger, than a Phoenix or Reyna. Keep in mind, we haven't even touched on the fact that Omen can be a great opper. His Shrouded Step ability lets him get to off angles just like Jett, while also letting him take a shot, hide, then teleport out to safety and to change angles unexpectedly. Okay, moving on, we have the last agent in the S tier, and that is Raze. I think most of you guys probably aren't surprised to find her here, as we've all felt the massive counterplay her ultimate brings to the table. Raze is actually quite unique when you compare her to other agents on the roster. No one else brings the straight up ranged damage like she does. Most agents have a delay or have to set up their damage in some way, like Brimstone's Molly or Killjoy's Nanoswarm. Even other duelists like Phoenix or Reyna, who can bring flashes, still have to actually land their shots from their gun. And this raw damage that she brings from her abilities can get so many frags and swing so many fights. But really, what pushes her into the S tier is that she's way more versatile than most players realize. Her Boombot in a lot of cases can be better than a flash or blind, as it informs you in advance where exactly a player is. It also threatens them with a whopping 125 damage if it explodes. It also forces them to do 100 points of damage to kill it, pulling their crosshair off the angle you're about to peek. Even her grenades are versatile. Most players think of them as a way to kill people, but they can be used to stall pushes. You can use them like a pseudo smoke to nade an angle to push someone off it, then push as they explode. She does have one weakness though, which is why we put her at the bottom of the S tier, and it's that she's a bit more map dependent than other agents found in this tier. Now don't get me wrong, she's god tier on maps with close corridors like Bind and Split, but larger, more open maps she kind of drops off into the A tier, especially on Ascent. Speaking of which, let's move on to the A tier. Now to be honest, in the right hands, these A tier agents can be just as powerful as the S tier agents. If none of the agents in the S tier are your style, then don't worry, as we don't want to give you the wrong impression. These A tier agents are still pretty close in power levels. It's not until the B tier do we see a massive drop off in solo carry potential. So with that out of the way, the first agent at the top of the A tier is Cypher. One of Cypher's biggest strengths is how he can solo hold a bomb site of his choosing. No need to rely on teammates to back you up or for them to have lightning fast rotations. He's one of the only agents who can straight up hold a 5-man push on his own, and this quality makes him extremely powerful in solo queue. However, this does leave him with a few weaknesses that the S tier agents don't have. Firstly, if the enemy takes the other bomb site, well then you're in a retake scenario, which Cypher isn't exactly the best at. You run into the same problems on attack, where it's hard to break the opponent's defense by yourself. Instead, what you should be doing is setting up tripwires to watch flanks and then fulfilling the lurker role. The lurker is someone on attack who goes to the opposite side of the map as his team to make picks on defenders that push out or to sneak into sites and get flanks once the defenders start to rotate. And this can leave Cypher feeling a bit inconsistent. Some games you'll have teams pushing into you, giving you tons of kills. Other times, the enemy team will be avoiding you like the plague, and you'll find yourself at the bottom of the scoreboard. With all that being said, he still has one more unique strength. His power level is extremely consistent across all of the maps. There pretty much isn't a single situation in which your teammates won't be happy to see you lock in Cypher. Now, next up in the A tier, we have the duelist Phoenix. I already know that some of you will be surprised that he isn't in the S tier, given how his kit is kind of designed to be extremely self-sufficient and cater to a solo queue environment. And to be honest, Phoenix has a lot of things going for him on the current patch. For one, Sage got hit with those huge nerfs this patch, and so self-healing has indirectly been buffed and become more valuable, something that Phoenix has plenty of. However, Phoenix really has two main things holding him back, the first being his flashes. Now don't get us wrong, they are a fantastic fragging tool, but we would be lying if we didn't admit that at least 20% of the time that you push in after a flash, you're going to get sprayed down by a blind enemy. Additionally, the long travel time gives opponents time to turn away from the flash. This can leave Phoenix's entry fragging to feel a bit more inconsistent than most players would like. You either peek as soon as you flash, hoping to catch the opponent with his back turned. The downside being, if he didn't turn away from the flash, then he's often just spraying you down by pre-firing your location, even if they're blind. Or your alternative would be to delay your peek a bit after your flash, in which case you can avoid the spray down scenario. But if the enemy turn their back to dodge the flash, they will be able to see again by the time that you push. So as you can imagine, this can feel a bit random or up to chance. The second thing holding Phoenix back is that we're in the operator meta, and Phoenix is the last agent you want to be carrying around an op. So on one hand, you have the flashes to help push an opper off an angle, but you can never pick one up yourself as you want to be using a rifle to entry frag. Essentially, Phoenix is the Swiss Army knife of duelists. He offers you flashes, self-healing, even a wall to block vision. However, that comes at the expense of all of his abilities being a bit weaker on average individually, which is why he's in the A tier and not the S tier. Alright, moving on, we have another pick that may surprise some of you for not being in the S tier, and that's Reyna. Reyna is actually a very difficult agent to rank for one specific reason. Her strength is both dependent on the skill of the player and the skill of the opponent. Let me explain. In the lower elo brackets, gold and below, Reyna is god tier. Reyna is beyond god tier. She's Super Saiyan mastered Ultra Instinct. She will single-handedly kill every person in the game, healing to full health and armor each time. However, that comes with the assumption that you don't have the aim of someone gold or below. I hope you're starting to see the catch-22. Yes, she's super strong against lower skilled opponents, but only if you yourself are higher skilled. Considering that most players are playing at their peak rank that they're stuck at, they won't have the skill difference needed to truly carry on her and win gunfights. Still, she has a couple things going for her in the current meta. We previously mentioned the big Sage nerfs this patch, which indirectly buffs the self-healing she brings. She also has a blind ability for entry fragging, which in the operator meta is super useful. At the same time, she's actually pretty good at filling the operator role herself. Mainly because after she gets a kill, she can then cast Dismiss on the orb that drops to then reposition to safety, similar to Jett's dash. The biggest reason that Reyna isn't ranked higher is that assuming you're facing opponents of equal skill level, then everything she does, another higher ranked agent will do better. Now dropping into the B tier, and I do mean that as this is the first time we're seeing a significant drop in power level. Typically, what you'll find in this tier are agents that are perfectly viable and powerful on their own, but it's when compared to other agents do you realize that they're essentially a weaker version of a different pick. Starting off at the top of the B tier, we have Breach. Now, Breach recently received buffs that increase the number of flashes he can carry from 2 to 3. But a huge buff that has been overlooked is that his ultimate and his fault line ability will now unscope enemies that get dazed by it and prevent them from rescoping. With how much we've been talking about how we're in an operator meta, I'm sure you can see how valuable this is. This offers a guaranteed way to push an opper off an angle, and definitely looks like Riot is trying to push Breach as one of the better answers to the operator meta. And you'd think we'd rank him higher with all of these buffs, but he still has one problem, and it's the problem he's always had. You need to coordinate with teammates and have them follow up with your abilities. Unlike other agents that can swing off their own abilities, think Raze and her Boombot, or Phoenix with his Flash, Breach usually needs to stand in specific spots to line up his fault line or flash. What this means is that his optimal usage case is to use his abilities, then have his teammates immediately push afterwards, and you simply won't find that kind of coordination in solo queue. Still, that doesn't mean he's completely useless on his own. You can still line up a fault line, then follow it up by flashing yourself in, and play like an entry fragger like Phoenix or Reyna. However, it then begs the obvious question, why aren't you just playing an entry fragger like Phoenix or Reyna instead? As you'd also get the additional self-heal that's so valuable in solo queue. And next up in the B tier, we have Brimstone. For the longest time, Brimstone has been a must pick and was the go-to agent for filling the Vision Denier role. However, quite a few patches back, they buffed Omen's Blind into the godlike ability it is today, and ever since then, we've seen Omen overtake Brimstone. In fact, in the last major tournament, Pop Flash, Brimstone was only picked 14% of the time, his lowest yet, while Omen was picked 87% of the time. So not only does Omen have more going on for him in a solo queue environment, but even in coordinated pro play, he's seen as stronger than Brimstone. And that's kind of a problem, as you don't really need two agents with smokes on your team. Once again, we have to bring up the operator meta. I know it's starting to become annoying, but we previously mentioned how Omen is actually quite strong with an op. However, Brimstone is absolutely terrible with it, as he constantly has to pull out his abilities. Don't get us wrong, he's still a viable agent to pick, but he's just completely overshadowed by Omen right now. Alright, and last in the B tier, we have Killjoy. Killjoy, being Valorant's newest agent, is one of the more difficult agents to rank accurately given that we have the lowest sample size of data to learn from. In terms of her strengths, she's fantastic at holding down sites. Her turret also pretty much prevents any flanks from the defenders when you're on the attacker side, and her post-plant on attack is one of the strongest in the game due to being able to place nano swarms on top of the bomb. Still, she runs into the same problem all of the B tier agents have, and that's the fact that there's another agent that can fill the same role she does, but better. And in this case, that's Cypher. You see, Killjoy is close in power when it comes to defending a site, but she suffers from one issue: she actually has to be at the site. Cypher, on the other hand, through his tripwires, cages, and most importantly camera, allows him to rotate more aggressively on defense, relying on these tools for both early intel and stalling pushes. At the same time, Cypher can use his tripwires and cages to effectively get free kills on opponents without them being able to fire back. That's a bit more difficult to accomplish with Killjoy having to either peek off the turret, in which case you could be peeking into multiple enemies, or having to rely on your nano swarm. Again, you risk peeking into multiple enemies or simply having the nano swarm miss. Both Cypher and Killjoy fill very similar roles on the team, while Cypher is kind of just better at that role right now. On the plus side, unlike in the case of Omen and Brimstone, there's nothing wrong with having a Cypher and Killjoy on the same team, leaving her a bit more versatile in that sense. At the same time, with Sage receiving nerfs, you'll likely find Killjoy naturally filling her spot on the team as well. This could possibly result in Killjoy jumping to A tier down the line, but unless Cypher receives some nerfs, she'll likely always be outclassed by him. Alright, now let's move into the C tier. Here, unlike the B tier where the main issues were agents being overshadowed by better versions, the C tier on the other hand are just straight up bad picks for solo queue. So with that being said, at the top of the C tier, we have Sova. I can guarantee that if a pro was watching this tier list, they would absolutely cringe at seeing Sova in the C tier. This is because Sova is a super unique agent that no other agent in the game can replace, and is pretty much considered mandatory in most team compositions in pro tournament play. However, solo queue is a completely different beast, and the value that Sova brings in a coordinated team environment is completely lost when you're playing by yourself or lower skilled teammates. For example, his Recon Bolt is one of the best intel gathering abilities in the game. On defense, this can give you early information, allowing you to rotate and stack sites in advance, or push out safely as a defender. On attack, this can inform you of where the defenders are playing, optimizing your push. But all of this is reliant on the fact that your teammates are actually going to do something with this information. I mean, half the time in solo queue, you can literally call out to your team to rotate that 5 enemies are pushing a site, and you'll still find a teammate or two either standing completely still or slowly walking, checking corners on the other side of the map. Same thing with his Owl Drone, one of the best entry fragging abilities in the game, but you need a teammate to follow it into the site, and you also need that teammate to have good enough aim to win any gunfights that they get into. Not to mention that the remainder of his abilities, Shock Darts and his ultimate, can require more skill to use effectively than the average ability in Valorant. Honestly, Sova might be one of the most difficult agents to master in the game, and he just doesn't have a big enough return on investment for this when it comes to solo queue. Next up, we have an agent that we never thought would be in the C tier, and that's Sage. Last patch, we saw Sage probably receive the biggest nerfs Riot has ever given to an agent. Her heal was reduced by 40, while also increasing the time it takes to heal on herself. Her slow orb had the size reduced by 30%, and her barrier orb had its health cut in half for the first 3 seconds after it's placed. Combine this with the fact that Sage's kit isn't exactly optimized for solo queue, instead heavily supporting her teammates. In fact, these nerfs are so significant we may have even placed her into the D tier if it wasn't for one thing: her ultimate. Sage's ultimate might just be the strongest ult in the game, and here's the thing a lot of players don't realize. If you're solo queuing and getting kills and gathering orbs, you're going to have an insane amount of uptime on Sage's ultimate. Not only does her ultimate straight up give you an additional teammate for the round, but it's also extremely valuable when it comes to balancing your economy. This is because it can result in you saving 1 additional gun heading into the next round. One other thing that's going against Sage right now is the introduction of Killjoy. Even with these nerfs, you could make the argument that Sage is a B tier agent. That is, if Killjoy didn't exist, simply due to the value Sage brings when it comes to shutting down pushes. However, we now have another agent, Killjoy, who can also fill this role, which indirectly makes Sage less valuable. And finally, we have the D tier, and to no one's surprise, we have Viper by herself. Ever since the game's release, Viper has been struggling in both win rate and pick rate. And Riot has tried their best to fix this, having given her multiple buffs across several different patches now. In the most recent case, even making her poison decay no longer affect teammates. And yet, we still don't think this is enough to bring her out of the D tier. Why is this? Well, it mainly has to do with three things: her difficulty, team coordination, and being overshadowed by other agents. Firstly, her difficulty. When you compare her to other similar vision-denying agents like Omen and Brimstone, you really start to realize how much harder she is to play. You need to learn specific lineups to use Toxic Wall and Smoke effectively, while Omen and Brimstone bring up a UI that allows them to easily place smokes wherever they want. Even her other ability, Snakebite, can be difficult to use, having to learn how to aim it and bounce it off walls properly to get it to land where you want. Compare that to something like Omen's Blind, where you just aim in the general vicinity of an enemy and you'll blind half the map. Secondly is team coordination. All of Viper's abilities have a delay to their activation, as well as having the user control when they activate or deactivate. This results in you having to coordinate with your team to use them properly. Often teammates will push into an area of the map before your wall is fully up, or they start pushing as you're running out of fuel, only to have your wall and smoke drop in the middle of a push. And thirdly, she is being overshadowed by other agents. It's actually quite hard to come up for a reason to pick Viper over other vision-denying agents like Brimstone or Omen. Often Brimstone and Omen both bring enough vision denial, so it doesn't feel like we need that extra vision denial that Viper brings. Brimstone's Molly also feels equal to Viper's Snakebite, and Omen's Blind is just way too strong to pass up. Really, the main unique strength Viper brings is her ability to control a single area of the map. But again, those roles are better filled by agents like Cypher, Killjoy, even Sage. What do you guys think though? What would you change about Viper to finally rise her up out of the D tier? Let us know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. And remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.